tell me why.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nxumalo. I do hope that you join us by clicking that red subscribe button on the bottom. That is if you enjoy the content that I serve in this channel. And also don't forget to smash that like button because it does help with the YouTube algorithm. And also welcome to each and every one of you that have recently joined this family. I hope that you are enjoying it here, and so do stick around. So with that being said, on today's video I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest financial traps that we have in our society, and we are going to be looking at how can you go about avoiding it. And what we're talking about today is basically debt. So debt is one of the biggest struggles for many of us. It's not that we don't get paid enough, but it's because some of us were just in so much debt that it's eating away on our income, and so we constantly feel like we do not earn enough, and so we wish and we hope to get paid more so that we can have more money to deal with some of our living expenses. But then we find ourselves always in the same place whereby we still have debt. We are accumulating more debt, and today we are going to be looking at how can you go about looking at debt differently so that you become less prone towards wanting to get more debt or getting into more debt, and actually looking at other alternative ways of dealing with whatever financial situations or whatever financial needs that you need to deal with. One thing I've noticed when it comes to debt is it comes in a form of lifestyle creep. You know, so let's say for instance you are working and you are getting paid a certain amount, so you're getting paid 10,000. You are living fine on 10,000, and let's say for instance you had maybe one debt or two in the 10,000 and your living expenses, but you were paying for all this, you are paying towards all these things, and then you get a promotion. Now let's say for instance you are getting 15,000 instead of 10,000. What happens is, for many of us, debt comes in a form of lifestyle creep, because you find that now that you're getting 15,000, you feel like, okay, now I can afford to buy myself a car. And so you start looking for a car that is affordable to you, you know, and you buy that. Or let's say for instance, now that you're getting paid 15,000, you decide that, okay, I think that it's time for me to upgrade and get a different type of phone. And so maybe you go for a more expensive phone. But in most cases, when this lifestyle creep happens, because the reason why lifestyle creep is lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep is a problem, is when it comes in a form of debt. We are not concerned as much about lifestyle creep and lifestyle inflation when it is financed through cash, where you are not owing anyone, because that one is not really felt in terms of your month-to-month expenses, because once you have paid for it once cash, you're not going to be paying for it. And so that is not something that we normally focus on, we worry ourselves in. You can have as much lifestyle inflation that you want, so long as it is financed cash, because it's not going to eat away on your disposable income on a monthly basis. However, it's a problem when now lifestyle creep comes in a form of debt, whereby now whatever that you want in terms of inflating your life or improving your life comes in a form of being financed by debt. So as I said, you decide that you want to buy a car, you're gonna have to finance that, and that means that each and every month now you're going to be having this debt that's going to be included in your monthly expenses or in your monthly repayments. That is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep coming in a form of debt. So you need to be very mindful of that whenever you are deciding to buy something or improve something or get something that is better, that you are always mindful that it is something that you can truly afford, be it that you decide to finance it through debt, because you will find yourself really struggling to maintain your monthly repayments because you've committed yourself in many things. The second thing is you need to start looking at debt differently. You stop normalizing debt. Debt is not normal. Yes, our society makes it normal. Our banks makes it normal. They approach us on debt each and every day. And so it looks as something that is normal. When you see other people getting into debt, it looks as normal, something that is doable. But if you really want to avoid this financial trap, you need to stop looking at debt as normal. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because someone else is buying this particular car doesn't mean that you have to buy it. What I'm trying to say here is personal finance is personal for a reason. And so when you look at debt, I want you to stop looking at yourself and grouping yourself with other people. Look at yourself as an individual and say, what do you want for yourself? And say to yourself that, for me, Jennifer, debt is not normal. Debt for me is not something that is normal. However, there comes a time in my life whereby it will be necessary for me to take out debt, but it is not normal. Even in that circumstance, it's still not normal. It's still not something that I should just be getting into easily. And the reason why I'm emphasizing the part of stop looking at debt as normal is because once you stop looking at it as normal, you are going to start being conscious whenever you are getting into debt. You're going to start being calculative before you get into debt. And you're not going to go in blindly. Whatever decision that you decide to take when it comes to getting into debt, you are going to be mindful. But so long as you look at debt as something that is normal, you're just going to go in blindly. So long as you see that you can afford the monthly installment, you're just going to go in without looking at the full picture. And so what I'm asking you to do here is stop normalizing debt. Debt is not normal. However, there will come a point whereby it's going to be essential and necessary for you to take out debt for certain things. And when I say that it's not normal, it allows you, as I said, it allows you to become critical. That, okay, yes, I now need to take out debt in order for me to finance this house, but can I really afford it? What can I afford? So let's say, for instance, when you crunch in the numbers, you find out that, okay, you can afford a house that you can pay 8,000 on per month. But that does not mean that you have to now go and look for a house where you're going to pay 8,000. It means that you need, because you don't look at debt as normal and you are more critical, it means that you're going to sit down and look at, okay, now that I see that I can afford 8,000, let me just be critical for real and really see how much can I really afford. And so there you sit and you look at how much rent am I paying currently. Okay, from the money that I'm paying on all the things that I'm paying for, how much disposable income do I have left? After I've paid for everything and I've saved, how much disposable income do I have left? Okay, now that I have a total from the money that I'm paying on rent plus the disposable income, how much money am I comfortable paying each and every month? Then every time as I'm paying for it, I won't feel the pinch. I won't feel like I'm paying a lot. And then you come to a number that is comfortable for you and that makes financial sense. But so long as you look at debt as something that is normal, that everyone can just get into, like, okay, well, we all have to have debt at some point, you're going to constantly find yourself drowning because you're going to get yourself in situations that you shouldn't be in. And as I said, doesn't mean that just because I'm saying debt is not normal means that you shouldn't get into debt. Yes, you will find yourself getting into debt. What I'm saying is you need to be more conscious, you need to be more critical, and you need to apply your mind before you get into debt. Another thing is whenever you are dealing with debt, so let's say for instance you find yourself in a situation whereby you now need to take out debt in order for you to finance that whatever thing that you need to finance. So be it that you want to buy a car, be it that you want to buy something, you want to get something for your house, or you want to take out a home loan. So let's say for instance you want to buy a car. What you need to do here is you need to not look at the monthly installment. Yes, they're going to punch in the numbers, they're going to look at your finances and everything, and they're going to come back to you and say this is how much you're going to pay per month and with on this interest for this period of time. I want you to look at this holistically. Don't just look at, okay, per month this is how much I'm going to pay towards this interest and for this period of time. I want you to look at the whole period of time. So here you sit down and you say, okay, they say I'm going to pay 5,000 per month towards this car, and I'm going to pay it for 72 months. And the value of this car is this much, because you really need to see, you really need to know the value of the car. So what you then do here is you take that amount of money, that 5,000 that they say you're going to pay, and you times it by the number of years that they say you're going to be paying this money for. So you say 5,000 times 72 months and see how much money you are coming up with. Once you have done that, you look at the value of the car. Now, this is where, for me, I save myself from getting into unnecessary debt. Like, for instance, I said that I wanted a new phone and I want an iPhone, between 13 and 14. So every time whenever I'm talking to MTN and we're crunching the numbers, for me the math is just not mathing, and so it helps me to then not get into debt. Otherwise, if I was not that critical to say that once they've crunched in the numbers, I'm just like, okay, let's go ahead with it, I would have gotten a phone a long time ago. But many times, guys, I've had conversations with people at MTN whereby they're like, okay, let us look at this. They crunch in the numbers, they do everything, and then they're just like, okay, you're going to pay maybe 1,300 per month. I sit down and I look at this 1,300 and I say times 24 months, and then I'm just like, ain't no way that I'm going to be paying that much money for 24 months when the phone is valued at this price. This is where you can actually have a leg to stand on in terms of avoiding getting into unnecessary debt. So once they've crashed in that, once you have calculated that 5,000 and you have put it together and you look at, okay, how much are you going to pay in total for the 72 months, be it that you're paying this 5,000 and the value of this car. If the money that you are going to be paying for these 72 months, it is way above the value of the car, this is where you really need to start questioning if this is a good decision or not. Whether you can afford the 5,000 or not, what I'm saying here is don't focus on the monthly repayments. Focus on the overall picture. The overall picture, né? Because this is going to help you to avoid getting into unnecessary debt. So if you really see that, okay, no ways, the gap here is just too much, this is not mathing, this is where you can actually say, you know what, I am going to hold my horses and I'm going to look for something that is much more affordable, something that makes better financial sense for me. That is how I avoid getting into unnecessary debt, especially when I am not financially ready. So what I'm saying here is always be mindful. Don't just focus on the now. Focus on the next, focus on the future, focus on the overall picture. If it's something that is not making financial sense, then don't get into it. Don't. I know life is short, but on the day you don't want to be living this short life in the misery of debt because you said life is short. So the next thing you live until you are 80, and the entire time that you have been living until you are 80, you've been miserable financially because you got yourself into bad financial decisions because of the fact that we only live once and that life is short. Another thing that will help you to avoid getting into debt is actually saving and investing. And one of the biggest way is saving towards an emergency fund. It's very crucial that you have an emergency fund. If you do not have an emergency fund right now and I'm talking to you and you have a job, can you please start being intentional about that and start saving towards that? Because that is one way that you're going to protect yourself in terms of avoiding getting into debt. There are many things that can happen in our lives that may need money. And if you do not have money that is easily accessible, you find yourself getting into debt. You find yourself getting into debt. There was a point whereby my mother was studying at University of Free State and she needed her academic record and they couldn't send her academic record because she was owing. And then I had to intervene just for her to get that academic record because it was needed at work. And when I intervened, I phoned University of Free State. They said, we have handed your mother's account to the lawyers and this is how much she owes. And they told me that it started at 6,000, now it's 12,000. And then I looked at that and I looked at my finances. I didn't have any sorts of savings. And so because I knew that this is something that is urgent and is something crucial for my family and it's important for my mother to keep her job, I decided to intervene and pay for those fees. And so what did I do? I went to Capitec and I took out a debt to be able to pay for my mother's fees. I came back and I made the payment with the University of Free State. They sent me the academic record. I transferred it to the school. See, I hope that you guys see the point that I'm making. Because I didn't have any savings to tap into, I had to rush to the bank in order for me to get money to deal with that. So let's say, for instance, you have a car and in your car, you have an insurance, but then you have a shortfall of 7,000. But in you having a shortfall of 7,000, you also do not have any form of savings at all. You have no emergency fund, you have nothing. What will happen if you get into an accident? You get into an accident and now they tell you that we can only cover this much, you're going to have to pay 7,000. But you do not have this money. What will you do? The only option is you go to the bank and you borrow that money or you borrow from people, but it's still a debt that you're going to have to repay. And so if you want to avoid getting into debt, the most practical way is actually creating savings, having savings. That way you are providing cushions around your life to say that if anything happens, the first thing will not be to go to the bank, but rather to say, which savings can I tap into in order for me to pay for that? The last thing here is stop worrying yourself about your credit score. Some of the questions that I get from you guys in the comment section is, were you not worried about paying off your personal loans and on your credit card? Were you not worried about your credit score? Did it not affect your credit score? For me, when I'm paying off debt, credit score is nowhere in mind. When I'm paying off debt, when my intention is to pay off debt, my goal there is to pay off debt, not to stay good in the books of the credit bureau, you know. And so I don't worry myself about credit score. What I'm saying here is stop worrying about your credit score. Stop worrying about that. Especially if you want to get out of debt, stop worrying about your credit score. However, if you're really concerned about your credit score, just so that I can make it clear for you, your credit score is not determined by how many debts you have. It's determined by the fact that you have a debt. So whatever debt that you may have, it can even be one. You may find that you only owe 1,000 on that debt, so long as you have that debt. But it is then determined by your payments for the debt. So you don't want to miss a month. You don't want to not pay your minimum repayment. If the agreement is that you pay 200 rands per month towards the debt, you need to make sure that each and every month you pay the 200 rands and you do not miss a month. And that is how you keep a healthy credit score. Yes, then let's say for instance for me, I decided to then pay off some of my debts. It did bring my score a little bit down, but did it trash my credit score? No. Did it make my credit score unhealthy? No, because the debt that I still had under my profile, I was still paying minimum. I'm still paying minimum. I'm still paying each and every month. I do not miss a month. And so my credit score is on a green. Even now, after I've paid off my credit cards, I've paid off my personal loan. And that is because the ones that I still have under my name, I'm making sure that each and every month they are paid for in time. So that is how you need to look at credit score. Don't look at it as, oh no, I need to get into debt so that I can build my credit score. No, you don't have to also say, I'm going to stay into debt. I'm going to stay in debt when you see very well that this debt is really crippling you, but you choose to stay in that debt just because you're worried about your credit score. Your credit score should not be your determining factor as to whether you get into debt or you stay out of debt. You should get into debt because this is something that you need. So let's say, for instance, you decide that you want to go and buy a phone. You go and buy a phone because you need it. But you don't go into debt just because you want to build your credit score. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we all make whenever we're trying to build our credit score. That is what I did as well. I got into debt because I wanted to build my credit score, which didn't make sense because at that time I was still in university and I had no plans of actually buying anything massive then. I had no job that would say that it warrants me to then get into a large debt, you know. And so you worrying about building your credit score really doesn't make sense. What I'm saying here is stop focusing on your credit score and focus on the fact that you get into debt because this is something that you need and it's going to be impactful in your life. And when you get into debt, it makes financial sense because you have sat down and you've done your calculations. And when you decide to get out of debt, you do not stay in debt just because you're worried about your credit score. You get out of debt so that you can improve your life. Then after that, you can think about ways that you can improve your credit score. But then, as I said, so long as whatever debt that you have, you are making sure that you're paying minimum in it. Just to close this video off, everyone starts off managing their debts very well. Everyone starts off saying, I can manage this debt, I can manage paying this much, until you get to a point whereby you cannot manage it anymore. So you don't want to get to a point whereby you cannot manage it anymore. And the reason why we get to a point whereby you cannot manage it anymore is because you look at it on a month-to-month basis and say, I can manage this. And so you take another debt and you say, I can manage it. You take another debt. I can manage it. The next thing you find yourself not managing at all and drowning in debt. And so stop looking at debt as something that is normal. It is not normal. And stop focusing on the credit score and start building building your savings so that you can have cushions to protect you, to avoid rushing into banks to borrow. And if you really want to be intentional about improving your finances, you need to start looking at debt as something that is foreign to you. Yes, something that you will need to get into at a certain point, but then it's not something that is normal. With that being said, I hope that you guys found this video helpful and insightful. Please make sure that you give it a thumbs up and also comment down below your thoughts. I will see you guys on the next one. Please take care and stay safe. Bye.
Someone tell me